Hello everyone, on this video we have one of our students and he's going to talk about an interesting topic on this presentation. So I would like you to start by introducing yourself, okay?
Good afternoon, teacher. My name is Agustín Cabrera. I am a B1 student at here, ILC English Institute. My topic is the Cold War. For over 4 decades, the world was divided into two opposing camps, led by the United States and the Soviet Union. This era was marked by ideological rivalry, nuclear threats, and global tension, but it also spurred incredible advancements in technology and science. By the end of this presentation, you will understand how the Cold War began, its key events, and how it still influences the world today. First, the origins. The Cold War didn't start with a bang, but rather a slow build-up of tension after World War II. The United States and the Soviet Union, once allies against Nazi Germany, found themselves at odds. The United States promoted capitalism and democracy, while the Soviet Union promoted communism and social control. This ideological divide was deepened by the events like the Yalta and Potsdam conferences in 1945, where the two superpowers clashed over the future of Europe. The United States introduced the Truman Doctrine in 1947, promising to contain the communism, and the Marshall Plan, which provided economic aid to rebuild war-torn Europe. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union tightened its control over the eastern of Europe, creating a buffer zone of satellite states. Winston Churchill called this division the Iron Curtain, symbolizing the split between East and West. The key events. The war was defined by the several major events that kept the world on edge. First, there was the arms race. Both superpowers amassed nuclear weapons, leading to a doctrine called Mutually Assured Destruction, or MID. The closest the world came to a nuclear war was during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the Soviet Union took their nuclear weapons to get in Cuba. Fortunately, diplomacy prevailed, but the threat of annihilation loomed large. Next, there was the space race. The Soviet Union took the lead with the launch of Sputnik, the first artificial satellite in 1962. The United States responded with the Apollo program, landing the first humans on the moon in 1969. This race was not just about space, it was about proving which system was superior. Then there were the proxy wars. The two superpowers fought indirectly in opposing camps in different countries around the world, like the Vietnam War and the Korean War. The two superpowers fought indirectly, causing immense suffering in these regions. Finally, the Berlin Wall, built in 1961. It was a powerful symbol of the Cold War. It divided families and ideologies until its fall in 1989. The end of the Cold War. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was struggling. Its economy could not keep up with the United States, and its people were growing restless. Enter Mikhail Gorbachev, a Soviet leader who introduced reforms like Glasnost and Perestroika. These policies aimed to modernize the Soviet Union, but its weakness is control. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 was a turning point. It symbolized the end of the division and the triumph of freedom over oppression. 2 years later, the Soviet Union dissolved, marking the official end of the Cold War. The United States emerged as a world sole superpower, but the legacy of this era will continue to shape global politics. Thank you.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions. First, why is it called the Cold War?
The Cold War called this way because the United States and Soviet Union fought indirectly in different countries around the world, like the Vietnam War and Korean War.
Like you said, they fought indirectly in different fields. So what were these fields?
The fields were about arms, space, and proxy wars. Also, in the Berlin Wall, separating West and East Germany.
How did it start? I mean, what were the key events?
It started because Germany was separate in the West and East Germany after World War II. And the communism with the Soviet Union took the control of the East Germany and its Europe, and the United States and its allies took the West Europe and West Germany.
How long did this war last and when did it end?
Yeah. It started about the 1960s and it ended with the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1989, and it lasted about 30 years.
What was the role of nuclear weapons in the Cold War?
The nuclear weapons was a very important role because the closest the world came to a nuclear war was during the Cuban missiles, and was because the Soviet Union and the United States fought for the missiles placed in Cuba in 1962.
In your opinion, do you think this war could have been avoided?
Yes, it could have been avoided because there are many different ways to avoid these wars, like the pacts, like the Warsaw Pact.
How has this war affected the world that we live in today?
This war affect the world that we live in today in different aspects, like uh, the wars in the West Europe, and the war of between Russia and Ukraine.
You also mentioned Winston Churchill, so how is he relevant to the Cold War?
He was relevant because he called the Iron Curtain symbolized the split and the fight between East and West Europe, and also the West and East Germany.
What's the difference between capitalism and communism?
The main difference between capitalism and democracy and communism was a non-convertible role in communism in social control, and meanwhile the United States have the capitalism where the people have individual freedoms.
You also mentioned the Berlin Wall. So, how is the Berlin Wall related to the Cold War?
Yeah. It's related because it was a powerful symbol of the Cold War built in 1961, and it separated East and West Germany and also separate ideologies and families until its fall in 1989.
I asked you a question about how the Cold War has affected the world that we live in today, but do you think that it has affected the world that we live in today positively or negatively? I mean, do you think are there advantages or disadvantages today?
Yeah, I think there were advancements in technology, but the effect in the world that we live in today was negatively because there were many conflicts that caused immense suffering in different regions around the world.
One last question, okay? How many countries were involved in the Cold War?
In the Cold War, there were many countries involved, like the main countries were the United States and the Soviet Union, but also the countries that involved in this war was Vietnam, Korea, Germany, and the allies of United States, like the England and France.
Okay, you said the United States and
Its allies.
yeah, okay. For example, how were these countries, Korea, Vietnam, and the others that you mentioned, how were they affected?
They affected because in Korea, it ended with the separate of the North Korea and South Korea in two different countries. And the Vietnam War, after the Battle of Saigon, all of the country were under the control of communism side.
After the Cold War, okay, how, I mean, nowadays, okay, how many of these countries have communism and capitalism?
Yeah. South Korea has a capitalism, and the North Korea and all Vietnam have a communism control in these days.
Okay, thank you so much for this presentation, Agustin.